Hey everyone, I got rank 1 with Control Murloc Shaman. Currently rank 2 sitting on NA with it. I think I was ranked 13 on Asia last night. I'm absolutely annihilating with this deck. And I have over 300 games with it. I bought 350. So I actually have some good statistics. It's hard when you have, 40 or 60 games, even that can be a good amount, but it's not really a sample size. Now I have a sample size that I can actually do some analysis on some different things and show maybe what a deck looks like at the absolute highest level versus when you use aggregate statistics, it has every player where what does a deck look statistically and what are things I could potentially change or learn from on this deck using sort of the stats and looking at what I'm playing against beyond sort of just the you play this card or this card's good for this. So yeah, I wanted to kind of go over some of my stats. So here you can see I have deck tracker. I have 212 games, 140 losses. You can see Druid, Rogue, and Shaman are my most common, and then after that it is Priest and Hunter, and then a little bit of I think this is Warlock actually, yeah. And then you can see there's a lot of other classes that are Warrior, mage is some of this, Paladin, very uncommon. That's kind of the distribution I'm playing against. You can see very few games against Demon Hunter. So Hunter and Warlock tend to be my worst matchups, which is interesting. Some people are saying a Shaman is favored. I don't think, I played a lot against D-Money, and he's very good at this deck. I don't think that's actually a good matchup, and Warlock is also a tough matchup. I actually have a positive win rate against Priest, which is kind of insane. It's probably a little tiny bit of Weak Priest, a little tiny bit of Board Priest, some Board Priest. I was doing well against Board Priest in general. I was beating Dravo a lot, but I actually do okay against Quest Priest, and I think this is one of those spots where it's a very tough matchup, but if you play it really well and you can handle tension and kind of uncertainty and kind of that constant tension of the match, because they have lots of good removal options, it's a lot more winnable. But I did look at some stats we'll show you later, but I think Mutanus is easily the big key to winning the matchup and eating a bunch of their stuff. But what's interesting is that it's a lot more winnable. I know Toxic J, who's has the reputation for sniping while I was playing Quest Priest against him, he was just conceding instantly and just giving up on the matchup. But it just goes to show you that not giving up is a huge element to making it all the way top, because a small increase in your win rate can be the difference between rank 1 legend and like rank 12 legend. So it's a thing of like hanging in there and finding those outs is absolutely huge. You can see the most common class I'm playing against Rogue, and I have 60 and 45, which is quite good. I think the Thief Rogue is I believe is the hardest. And I think Bomb Rogue and the sort of Boat Rogue are a lot better. Boat Rogue, you can really sort of trap them in Snowfall Guardian chains and often win. But I could be wrong about that. But yeah, there's Mutanus outs. There's kind of playing this long game, and that's something I think I'm really good at as a player, is kind of playing the long value when Hearthstone becomes not just tempo, but it's about setting up long terms, figuring out what your individual win condition is, and depending on the way the rogue is playing, there could be a lot of different win conditions. Do you go for a outvaluing win condition? Do you go for a tempo win condition? Do you tempo them down into burn OTK? There are games where I go Brucon, and then I could do something like Brand Macaw's against a rogue, because rogue doesn't have very good heal. But if they somehow discover a light shower elemental, it's going to be very hard to go for the quick win because they have so much heal. So a lot of that can be really interesting for sure. And I think the other two matchups that are really popular, Druid is probably the class that I'm farming the most. You can see I'm 57 and 27, so about a 67% win rate, and I'm crushing Alignment Druid. So everybody's complaining about Alignment Druid. I love Alignment Druid, and I think one of the things that I'm probably doing better than you in the Alignment Druid is winning post alignment. I think there are a lot of plays you can do to win post alignment that people don't realize. One is you can frostbite your own minion. Two, you can do an Okani. You can also set up, but you can go discount, save a discount on your Clownfish, and you can get a brand Mutanus or a Mutanus Macaw right immediately after they go alignment. So I think players think, oh, my opponent went alignment, I lose the game. Not true at all with this matchup. So if I think players have the alignment, it's always uninteractive, and I think in certain matchups certainly is. If you're playing, you know, against a board priest, the board priest is not going to be happy a lot of alignment no matter what. But as a shaman, sometimes I'm actually happy to see alignment because that can seal the deal for me. So yeah, I think the big thing about Druid is you tempo out. If you can afford to play around spam, you can, but a lot of times you can't. And get lots of tempo and put your opponent in a spot where they never really feel that good about playing alignment. But if they get to a spot where they can, your playbacks are things like Mutanus and Frostbite, which can make a huge difference. But yeah, the Mage, I haven't played much, but it looks like I'm doing pretty well against that. And mirrors, I think, are really interesting. There's a lot of Snowfall Guardians. A lot of I found putting a lot of tempo in the first 4 turns is actually huge. I know Jay was beating me a lot where he just play a bunch of school stuff, and then I would start freezing, and he would just burn me down with Brucons or silence his own board. So a lot of times, because people are running Starfish, early tempo can make a huge difference in the mirror. So often, you know, you can mulligan pretty aggressively for 1 and 2 drops because if you just play Wildpaw Cavern on 4, it can actually be bad because all of a sudden you're filling up your board and there's Snowfall Guarding chaining you and your life is already low because they got, you know, faster early minions and you didn't. And Warrior is a very easy matchup, so not much of Warrior, not much of Paladin. So that's kind of my overall statistics, and you can see I have a 59% win rate. And I think this is what I like about this is, you know, Wet Goose had told me, who's got some of the most best stats, ladder stats of all time, you only need about a 57% win rate over a long period of time to get #1 legend. I think people think, I think, you know, the YouTube clickbaits have gotten to a point where people think, oh, to Deck to be good, you need a 70, 80, 90, you know, some ridiculous win rate. And realistic over, if you can maintain a 59%, I think you only need a 57% win rate over a long period of time, you're going to get #1 legend. That's the reality. So I think people think, you know, this game is about always high rolling. And that means I'm losing, you know, I have 59, so I'm doing really, really well. But before this, before I got #1 legend, I had about a 57. I started winning a lot at the end to get #1. But I had, if I'm losing 43% of the time, that means even in a certain period of time, I might go through a large loss streak. And if you can't handle that emotionally, if you start, you know, panicking, you're not going to get #1 legend because you're going to tilt. I know certain players who are absolutely brilliant players, but then they tilt and they lose all their rank. And once I was kind of hanging out in top 20 for a long period of time. So if I don't have going these big loss streaks on tilt, it makes it that much easier that, you know, if I'm on that day and I get a little bit lucky to finally make that push for #1. There's a lot about being #1, in my opinion, is getting into the top 10 and then just playing good overall and then waiting for some good variance. But if the bad variance really takes you down and makes you on a tilting spree, that's going to have a bad time. So remember, even at the absolute highest legend, I got to #1 legend. I'm rank 2 right now. I still have a 43% probably win rate, loss rate overall. And if you're not handling that well, you're not going to get #1. So no matter who you are, you're losing at a decent amount. Being able to handle those losses, have a good time, and hang in there and not get tilted from that, very, very important. So yeah, so a lot of games. So now I want to go over some of my mulligan stats and some of my drawn win rate stats on the HS replay. So here I have my personal stats. You can see what are my highest cards. You can see Schooling, absolutely huge in the mulligan. Very, very good card. You can see it's outperforming everything else. So the next one I was very surprised on, and this might be conditional, but Amalgam has a really high mulligan win rate for me, which I don't know what to make of. These are always really interesting because and I think it might, you know, might have a Clownfish Amalgam but I do also know, you know, if you have, you know, Clownfish Amalgam Bullner, it can be really good, but it's an interesting thing of, I don't really know why it's so good, and it might just be, you know, a small sample size, but I think, you know, it's interesting to see that. You see Wildpaw Cavern doing well, that's to be expected. Clownfish to be expected. Gorlak I'm generally keeping more and more, that's to be expected. But yeah, you can see those are kind of the big keeps overall. And we can look at some individual matchups as well. This is something I'm looking at now. Cookie, very bad mulligan win rate. So this is probably a thing of, I'm probably keeping him too much. Blade Master, I stopped keeping. I can see is a very bad mulligan win rate as well. And I probably have kept Brucon a little too much, bad. And Bloodless, this is obvious. It's going to have a bad mulligan win rate. but even, you know, Mutanis, Macaw, these are bad. So some of these are obvious, but some of these are not. And it's kind of interesting just seeing, you know, what is my actual stats. So let's compare these to the, you know, actual mulligan stats. You can see schooling and Bolner. So what's interesting, I did find, is my Bolner mulligan win rate a lot less than other players. So that might be a thing of I might be holding Bolner too much. I'm not really sure. I did get to rank 1, so, but it's a thing of I might have a bias with Bolner that I'm doing that it's not doing as well for me. And this is also the interesting is why, you know, Cookie for most players doing really, really well, and it's one of my worst mulligans, which is, you know, that's an interesting one as well. You know, why is Cookie not doing as well for me? I might be different players, different incentives. There might be a lot more tempo matchups where Cookie's a little better. So if you're playing something like Mech Mage, or maybe you're playing against Mech Paladin, having that weapon can make a massive difference in those matchups where it doesn't necessarily make as much of a difference in the matchups I'm playing. So that's kind of my theory. I don't really know, but it's interesting. It's interesting to look where your stats are differentiating from other stats. And you can see Frostbite, you know, mine is kind of similar. Amalgam, this looks a lot more reasonable, but, you know, it's still, at the end of the day, while 350 is big, it's not insanely big, and it's going to have massive biases in each player. But I'm trying to see, like, what are my biases? Why is Amalgam doing so well for me, but not for other people? It's interesting. But yeah, it's a thing of maybe I should be keeping Amalgam more, or maybe it's a conditional probability of when I do keep Amalgam, I have a really good hand. So there's a lot of different things that it could be beyond just it's a good card to keep in the mulligan. So next I want to look at some of my drawn win rates versus the stats. You can see Amalgam's just doing really well for me in general, but Snowfall Guardian, this stuff. Cookie doing really well for me, just not in the mulligan. Brucon. Wildpaw not doing nearly as well for me, and this is something I've been noticing as well. Command of Neptulun, I can't pronounce it. Neptulun, I can't pronounce that card. Doing very poorly for me, and I think one of the reasons is both Druid and Rogue. This card feels really bad. Druid is awkward because you often can't play it because when you want to, it's really risky because of alignment making you overloaded. And for Rogue, it's really awkward because it just gets wrecked by Krakatoa. And those are some of my most common matchups. So I think this is a card that kind of I could see myself cutting. So cards I've thought about putting, I put up in Glug or just another Windchill. So if I were to play this more, I might eventually cut that card. Now that might not be good for everyone, but I could see overall this is also one of the worst performing cards in general. So it's definitely a very cuttable card. But I want to see one of the things I've noticed is if you look at other people, School Teacher and Bran are not performing very well. But for me, Bran and School Teacher are solid drawn win rates. And I have a theory on this is, one, I'm much better at finding these lines. I'm much better at finding the Bran plays. And I think also I know a lot of the different plays you can do for School Teacher. You can play School Teacher for 1. You could pop off then you could just save Bran School Teacher for like a turn 9 play. You could do it on 4 and then maybe do a Bolner play with something like if you get Farsight. You can get Bioluminescence for often an alternative win condition. There are a lot of really cool plays you can do with School Teacher. And I think this is a skill testing card. So I think while I don't really trust the global statistics, so I know some lists cut it. I think if you want to get number 1, cutting School Teachers is a big mistake, but you have to sort of understand the outs really well. You can see my Bran also performing a lot better than other people, sort of the general overall sample. So you can see what else are some interesting things. This was one I did find. I wasn't surprised in this. I think Blade Master has not been performing great for me, but Frostbite not doing great for me either. Where you can see in general Frostbite a little bit better for other people. And it's a thing of I'm not really sure on this, but I might be going for too many fancy play syndromes. Frostbiting your own minions, doing stuff like that. So it might be a thing of I've done just some bad plays with Frostbite, which I think might be interesting. And I was very surprised on Bolner having a low drawn win rate, but I think this might have a very, what do we call, a conditional probability. So when you have a really good Bolner play, what are you often doing? You're going Bolner, Clownfish, Gorlak. What does this do? It draws you a lot of cards. And this is a thing of why maybe Amalgam has a really good draw and win rate. But it can have a conditional of like when you play Gorlak, you're likely to draw Amalgam, and that has a conditional probability. But I might be really good at those plays where the average Diamond Legend player is not. If we go to just Legend, you can see it's still doing really well though. So it's hard to know on that, but it is interesting. This is something I might be thinking about. Do I need to play my Bolners more aggressively? I'm not really sure. But you can see I'm probably doing something suboptimal. So even at rank 1 Legend, there are ways to improve. But I'm probably doing something suboptimal because of that. So next, I'm trying to see some other interesting ones. But you can see everything else here feels pretty reasonable and kind of very similar. You can see Mutanus and Bloodlust are similar places. Brucon's a little bit better for them than for me, but Brucon's still doing great for me. So everything else looks pretty reasonable. I think the Wildpaw Caverns and Bolner being a little bit low, a little bit surprising. And what is interesting is School Teacher doing a lot better for me than it is for other people. So knowing the outs and knowing the plays, I think makes a massive difference. So this is something I wouldn't, if you want to be the best of this deck, I would have the School Teachers in, but know that it makes the deck more complex, but also gives you more room to outplay people. So I think that's really interesting. Next, I want to just talk about, we can go over a few matchups and let's look at some stats. So of myself, this is obviously going to have this, but this is what I'm first seeing is apparently Blademaster really good in the mulligan, despite me never keeping it. So this is a thing of, let's look at the global stats. Let's see if Blademaster is doing as well against Druid. So we can see it is not doing well against Druid. So this is a thing of this could easily be small sample size. I only have about 60 games, but this might be a thing of maybe I should consider keeping Blademaster in the mulligan. These Flurgle, Bolner, Schooling, these all make sense. You can see Gorlak good too. These kind of tempo cards and things that make sense like Snowball Guardian, all these kind of high value slow stuff. Not being good at the Goldman definitely makes sense. I don't know if we can trust Rogue. I don't know how it works with this, but you can see Brucon apparently doing really well for me. Let me see if we could look at global stats. Looks like Brucon does well too. So I think this is for what I was saying earlier, having the Brucon, one, to deal with the scabs, but also kind of give you that burst and heal against other, maybe an aggressive rogue list. Maybe I should be considering keeping Brucon. But it's hard to know, is this for Mine Rogue? Is this for Thief Rogue? I don't really know. And also, against Rogue, often you don't know what class it is. So this is hard to make sense of, but, maybe that's something interesting. And Snowfall Guardian, I think is interesting, but Rogue is one of the tough. I don't quite know how the stats work with the Maestra, and if this is only Mine Rogue, but I would say it's probably just regular Rogue as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't have any stats on it. But yeah, it's a thing of maybe, Brucon and Snowfall Guardian, if I think their Rogue is a reasonable key. Against Priest, let's look at that. So my stats, you can see getting much smaller, but kind of the Macaw Clownfish looks like a different way, and School Teacher routes look really good. Maybe potentially. I know I've scammed games in Priest by getting a Bioluminescence off School Teacher, so maybe that if you go buy a School Teacher on 4 and you get a very scammy card, that could be reasonable. But I think this is just a little too small to say. So you can see as we get more and more sort of classes, my stats get less and less relevant. Let's look at some going first and going second. So this is, wow, I did not expect this. So you can see in general, when I'm going first, Command is apparently really good in the mulligan, which this is another very surprising one. And you can see Amalgam not nearly as good. But on Coin, you can see, and maybe this is for the Amalgam is good with the Clownfish Amalgam play. Also looks like Brand does really well on Coin. So I know certain games I go Coin Brand. That's kind of interesting. So maybe this is something to learn from this. Might be that this is just kind of good for fast tempo and is less good as a reactionary card because you'd rather on Coin maybe just go Snowfall Guardian. You can see Snowfall Guardian a lot better on Coin, it looks like, than going first in general. But yeah, let's see. I'm curious on Wildpaw Cavern. So Wildpaw Cavern on Coin, Wildpaw going first, very similar. So yeah, a lot of interesting things that I'm seeing from my stats. I think we've talked enough about it, but you can see, you know, where I'm in line with the stats, where I might be doing some poor Bolner plays. Maybe I'm being too greedy in certain spots. I'm not really sure, but you can see Bolner is not performing nearly as well. It might be another thing of at my level, as opposed to Diamond, players are just being way more aggressive in removing Bolners, and they're playing for this. So you can see there's a lot going on, and it's very, very easy to make false correlations and stuff. But I think this is just interesting stuff of looking at, you know, when you get 350 games of a deck, what some of the things you can learn are. So I hope this is a little bit different kind of guide, talking about sort of overall stats and, you know, what I'm experiencing. And I'm kind of just riffing on some of my ideas on the deck. But yeah, if you want to see some gameplay of this deck, I highly recommend you check out my VOD channel. I'll have a link to some gameplays and the rank 1 video below. But I hope you guys find this interesting. I know new expansion is coming out, so but we'll see if sort of the Control Shaman archetype stays alive. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's really interesting. So I hope something like this sticks around. But I don't think Snowfall Guardian's going anywhere yet. So as long as Snowfall Guardian's around, I think Shaman will be around in some shape or form. But anyways, hope you guys like this different kind of content. Yeah, enjoy. Hey everyone, if you made it all the way to the end, chances are you really like this content, so thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. If you want to show your support of the live content, feel free to like and subscribe. Liking and subscribing always helps the algorithm of the show that you like it, so the thing is more likely to give it to other people. In addition to that, if you are always wanting a No Hands Gamer video, but some days I don't put one out because I don't know what to do, we have another channel, which is the No Hands Gamer VODs, which is the raw, unedited content from my Twitch, where you get to see everything on the YouTube format. I highly recommend you go check that out, so you can get your No Hands Gamer fix every day, even when I don't put out a normal YouTube video. Hope to see you guys in the next video.